Welcome back, everyone. In this lecture, we're going to get a quick overview of your Pandas exercise question. So there's a notebook that contains some tasks for you to follow along with in order to test your understanding of Pandas. So let's go ahead and open up that notebook and review the question tasks. In the next lecture, we'll go over the solutions. Okay, here we are at Pandas Exercises underneath the Crash Course Pandas folder. So the first task is to import pandas, and then the next task is to read in the bank.csv file that's located underneath the Crash Course Pandas folder. And this is actually part of the task to make sure you're able to read in the CSV file correctly. If you're not able to figure this out, please don't post to the Q&A forum saying the CSV file is missing. It is located in the zip file of notes. So if you can't figure this out, all you need to do is run our solution notebook directly to see the correct way of doing this. Then we want you to display the first 5 rows of the data set. And as a quick note, for a lot of these tasks, what you should do is there's going to be 2 cells below it, one that says code here, and then one other cell below that showing you the correct output. You should avoid coding in this cell, otherwise you'll delete the expected output. So instead, code here, that way you can make sure that after you run that cell, your output matches up to what's expected. Next, we want you to answer what's the average or mean age of the people in the data set. Then, what is the marital status of the youngest person in the dataset? That person should be single. Then, how many unique job categories are there? How many people are there per job category? And if you take a peek at the expected output, that should give you a hint of how to solve that sort of question. Then we give another task, what percent of people in the dataset were married? Then there's also a column labeled default. So use pandas.map method to create a new column called default code, which contains a 0 if there was no default, or a 1 if there was a default. So a big part of Pandas is being able to Google search or use the Pandas documentation or Stack Overflow in order to understand how to apply methods in Pandas that you haven't maybe necessarily seen before. And you haven't actually had that much experience with .map, so in case you're stuck on this, we provided 2 helpful links here. However, I would recommend that you basically try to search for the correct way of doing this on your own and only use these helpful links if you get stuck. Okay, so after running that, you should see at the very end your new default code column, which is either 0 or 1, depending on the output of this default column here, which was yes or no. Then, using the pandas.apply method, create a new column called marital code. And this column is only going to contain the first letter of the marital status. So for example, we have married, single, etc. So your new column for marital code should just contain that first letter, M, S, etc. And there's lots of different ways to do this one. In fact, a lot of these tasks have multiple correct methods. So as long as you get the same result, that's totally okay. You don't need to post to Q&A forums asking if your solution is also valid. If you get the same results we do, then yes, your solution is valid. Pandas, there's basically tens of different ways you can solve each of these tasks. And just like before, there's also a hint for this one in case you get stuck on it. Next, we ask you what was the longest lasting duration. Then what is the most common education level for people who are unemployed? And then what's the average or mean age for being unemployed? Okay, so if you get stuck on any of these tasks, go ahead and meet me at the next lecture where we'll be going over the solutions. Thanks, and I'll see you there.